Hi, everybody. Dave Kusek here. I am the founder of the New Artist Model online music business school, and very happy to have some friends of mine here today. We're going to talk about fan engagement and support and raising money for projects. The number one problem that many artists talk to me about is having a steady income. How do I get a steady income? How do I quit my day job? How do I live the life in music that I really want to live? That's the biggest challenge that most people have. And, you look at all the other issues that people have about promoting and marketing and engaging with fans. It really all comes down to your relationship with your audience and how can you find support for your art. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I've got three friends of mine here, the founders of PledgeMusic. We have Benji Rogers and Jayce Varden, and Will Daley, a very successful local musician in the Boston area who has a lot of great insight into what's working for his career and good stories to share with you all. So I'd like to start off by introducing Benji. And Benji, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Benji, and along with Jayce and a couple of other ruffian friends of mine, we had this idea to found PledgeMusic about 6 years ago. We just turned 5. The intention behind creating the company in the first place was that as an artist myself, performing, playing in bands. Even Jayce and I were in a band together 100 years ago in Los Angeles. Shocking material. Basically, what I saw was that the industry as wasn't going to continue in any kind of viable fashion. The selling of CDs would seem strange in a streaming world, and so basically, I called up the smartest, best people I knew and said, I've had this idea. And I, in my head, was going to be a musician full-time still and, create this company. What ended up happening was it was a much bigger, idea than just the original one. And so, yeah, PledgeMusic was born and launched the first campaign, which was for my own EP 5 years ago in July of last month. It really kind of blossomed from a place where an artist reaches out to their fans to, be a part of the making of an album, to a community where people are now looking for new artists to get involved with. It's really kind of like a super fan destination, and we've been honored, thrilled, and excited to work with thousands of unbelievable artists. It's gone beyond what I think Jayce, myself, and the two other founders really thought it could be. But yeah. That's the story. Was a musician, now president of tech company, and who knows? Maybe I'll start making albums again soon if Jayce can free up some time to play drums.
Well, I hope so. So, Jayce, how did you meet this character?
Oh, this character and I go back a little ways for sure. It's rooted in Boston, to tell you the truth. We met at Berklee College of Music in 1991. We were both living in the Comm Ave dorms, and I was playing with a few guys in one of the rehearsal rooms down there, and Benji popped his head in and said, "Hey," and
tell the story, Jayce.
No, we can leave that for another time. I will say this: that the band that I was playing with went on to sign the largest and last big rock record deal, $1 million advance that was offered in the late '90s. While I was traipsing around Europe with Benji in LA, drinking too much whiskey and making music. But anyway, yeah. So we met at Berklee, and throughout the '90s, we kind of traipsed around a bit and made some great music together. When the band that we had together in LA kind of took its course, I came back to Boston, put myself through business school. Benji was in New York playing. We've been fast and best friends throughout that whole period anyway. So when he had the idea for PledgeMusic, I guess I was that only friend that had been through business school that he first kind of brought the idea to. And we sketched the original, business plan out on some napkins at a coffee shop in Waltham. brought it to some people who were slightly more experienced and incredibly smart and gracious with their time in helping us develop that business plan into something that we could then present to a few angel investors, and found one right away, and we're up and running really within a year's time from Benji's idea to actual build and launch. So yeah, the roots go back far, and we've remained friends and now business partners.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And we're gonna talk a lot more about Pledge and what you guys have built and the community that you've created and how it all works. But I'd like to say hi to Will. And Will, why don't you tell us? I understand you got a record dropping today.
It comes out today. My first independent record via PledgeMusic comes out today. I don't know how I first heard of PledgeMusic, but I was in the Boston area, and Jayce is based. His office is based in the Boston area, so we were running into each other at shows and stuff like that. And I was on Universal at the time, and I could smell not only the direction of the industry, but just that this was not a place I felt safe making music, which isn't really an insult to them. It just wasn't a good match for me artistically, and I was kind of looking to the future at all times, and ran into Jayce and started talking about Pledge and getting comfortable with the concept. And I think what really turned me on to the concept was when I pledged on a couple friends or bands that I was a fan of. I remember Grantley Phillips, who I've always been a fan of, Jesse D, who's a friend of mine in Boston, and Tim Gearin, who's a friend of mine in Boston. And I pledged on their 3 campaigns, and I got their records. And just listening to it was a different experience because I had been a part of it from day one. And you felt like you were another reason why this existed. And it's the first time that's ever been allowed as a listener or a fan or anything. And it's a unique experience. And I think it's a new experience that for the general music lover, it's going to take a while for them to get around to. But when they do, it'll be this great norm that we'll all wonder, why wasn't it always this way? And we'll look back, kind of like how we used to bleed each other with fevers, you know. And we'll look at, you know, the large label system or buying a record after it already cost $100,000 to make as some archaic way of making music when we could easily have done it together. Is my microphone on?
Yeah.
Yes, that was awesome. Particularly for the parts about bleeding.
Yeah. So I
Okay, so
okay. No, I'm gone.
yeah, so Benji and Jayce, let's go back to Pledge, and why don't you guys talk a bit about your experience over the last 5 years with building this business and working with artists, developing a community, and helping people, you know, connect direct to fan and building their community. What has been your, you know, what's been the most surprising and interesting thing that you've seen along the way that maybe you weren't expecting when you first started?
You know, hearing Will just describe what we do from his perspective has been one of the, I mean, that's an amazing way that you just put that. And what I'll say is that it's exactly what we had, what you just described, Will, is exactly what we intended for it to be. I think that, you know, one of the more surprising aspects to the business for me personally has been that it's better for everybody involved. Jayce was the first one to point this out to me, that in business you've got the sort of the hierarchy of needs, which is where you've got, like, if it can be a win-win for multiple people and you can create a sustainable business out of that, there's no downside.
Well, yeah, and you know, you guys started very early on this path. You know, the whole crowdfunding thing kind of kicked off when you guys started your business, and you chose to focus on music given your background. But I think that was a very prescient thing to see at the time, where the market was going to change, and you put yourself right in the hot seat to help facilitate that and help people with their careers in this new world that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2020, and what we've been able to see, it's just a remarkable phenomenon. The thing that consistently amazes me, though, is that when you think about what Pledge is, it's a better experience for all involved. It makes more money, and it sells more records. And what's been surprising is you'll have a meeting with a lot of managers or labels, whatever it is, say, it makes more money, sells more records, fans have a better time, a charity often gets paid, everyone involved has this incredible experience, let's go. And they go, yeah, but it's just not how it works. We normally like to, we like to do X, Y, and Z. And you get that sort of thing of like, well, why would you want to do that? We'll literally just cut to the heart of what we do, which is that it's better. I've often said this to fans. You don't have to go through a Pledge campaign if you don't want to. You can go and just buy the record at retail when it comes out, or you can buy it on iTunes, or you can just stream it. That's an option for you. But for an artist to not offer a fan the ability to spend where they want to, the ability to participate, is simply cutting off a potential stream of income. But more importantly, this is their future. The people that pre-ordered Will's record are the future. They are going to be there. They're going to carry it to the next level. Before we started this chat, Jayce and I were talking about the record that we watched Will make. I mean, we're fans as well. And had we not done that, had we not experienced that, what would it have been like? What was the most we could have achieved outside of this realm of possibility? And I think it comes down to this fact that I've been surprised that artists tend to be storytellers, creative people who tell stories. The release of an album, straight from its finish to the streaming service, is not much of a story anymore. But the creation of an album, why it was put in, that's the story. People can follow that. And what I say to a lot of artists is, you're a creative person, and you spend all this time crafting something beautiful, and then at the end of it you go, and let's just put it on some 1980s plastic disc technology and shove it out the door. And better is possible now. And I think that in my head and my heart, this will become a normal process, as Will so eloquently put it. But I want artists to make the albums that they want to make. I want to, and produce an incredible engineers, and you can bring in amazing musicians, and you can
Benji,
paint with the canvas as you see fit.
A lot of dropout on your mic.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. Let's try Jayce. You
want
to
Jayce?
Yeah. You know what? I'll sum it up from a purely commercial point of view. Today I went to iTunes and pre-ordered 3 albums, 2 of which we pitched for at PledgeMusic and didn't get. 1, I just liked the artist. The maximum I could spend on iTunes for these pre-orders was $9.99. I would have easily spent $400 or $500 on one of the artists. I would have easily spent $75 to $150 on the other 2 artists, just because of how much I like them. So I think what the traditional route does is that it leaves all of that extra revenue from a super fan like myself on the table. And what PledgeMusic brings to the table from a commercial perspective is the ability for fans to purchase and partake in things that they'd never been offered before or that they want, as opposed to what they're just force-fed. So really, from a lost revenue perspective, I had the exact example of it today. From the artistic side of it, and I think Will can really sum this up, because this is the story that he told me. I'll just tell a little bit of it. Is that the process for the artist as the pledges start to come in, whether or not it's before the creation begins or when you're actually in the studio, as Will was in the studio, it allows the project to potentially take on a whole new meaning. The artist is reacting and feeling these emotions as people are responding to the pre-order or the funding project that's gone up. And I think that that necessarily has a direct impact on the creative process in an inspirational way, in a way of saying, hey, listen, I'm not doing this on my own. These are people who want to be a part of this. I owe it to them in one sense. I'm going to give them the best experience I possibly can. So, you know, I think it could be argued that for the majority of these projects, they're probably able to transcend themselves a little bit because of the positive nature that this type of support brings into the studio atmosphere. Will, I'll segue that one to you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, like Jay said, being in the studio, and my campaign was active. It was just getting going, and the pledges were coming in. Sometimes it was someone you knew, sometimes it was someone you didn't know. But each time, instead of being in that vacuum in the studio, where you're thinking, oh man, this sounds really good, I think I'm pretty awesome, or this is not sounding good and no one's ever going to hear it. One of those two things is always happening. And you see these names come across and you immediately connect with someone, multiple people, that are going to hear this and want to hear it. It hasn't even been made, they don't know what it is, but they want to hear you do your thing. They trust you, they're excited about you as an artist, and they want to hear you do your thing, as opposed to when I was on labels, and I learned many great things during that time, but you're answering to a couple people who want to hear this word's pronounced a little clearer, or your vocal louder, or these things that don't inspire you, and that are really just people making decisions to make decisions when it comes down to it. I think when you cut an artist loose, that's when you get real art, and that's when you really get something to invest in, and that's when you really give art a chance to explode. And the platform of having a bunch of people giving you a thumbs up on by pledging while I'm recording, while I'm making this art, was the more enlightening musical experiences I've had.
That's awesome. Will, a while ago, you made a statement to me that, you know, I've heard before and I've thought a lot about, but I'd like you to talk more about, in that all art exists because of subsidy. And I mean, that's a very profound statement to make, and I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Talk about that.
I think, when I ever see someone's college dorm room or the refrigerator with Starry Night on it by Van Gogh, it has Starry Night on it. It's a magnet now. It's a poster you can buy anywhere. And it's a painting that everyone knows, and everyone knows the brushstroke, and everyone knows the artist, and it's in museums, and it's made museums millions of dollars now. But they would not exist if Vincent van Gogh's brother didn't bail him out of every road bump in life, didn't pay for his hospital bills, didn't pay for his paints, didn't bail him out. We would not have Starry Night were it not for his brother. We would not have the Sistine Chapel if it wasn't for the Pope. And we lose sight of that sometimes when we enjoy art in hindsight. And it's not taught in the schools. We're taught about the brushstroke, and we're taught about how great, who's better, John Lennon or Paul McCartney, and we're not taught as much about George Martin. And so we need to teach that art exists because all of us need it and want it, and it builds cities, and it builds communities, and it builds businesses like Apple. I mean, Apple was a pretty good computer company, and then iTunes came along, and everyone had to have an iPod. Art builds things, and artists need people's help to create the product that brings in the commerce, that brings in everything: architecture, painting, music, film. So it's important to remember that we're all responsible for that.
Great. So handing it back to either Jayce or Benji, you guys have now, I don't know if you can share any sort of numbers or metrics, but you got a lot of artists on the site. You've got a lot of fans engaging. You've built a really a very successful business. You've been at it for 5 years, which is a huge milestone in a lot of startup communities, whether you make it to 5 years, so congratulations. But, kind of following on of, what Will is talking about, that, art requires subsidy, and you are sitting in the middle of that transaction between artists and their fans, and you're encouraging that subsidy, and you're providing some very creative ways to facilitate that. Can you just talk about experiences that you've had with other artists or other fans that have made that connection, and again, what has been maybe unexpected result of the business that you built?
Sure. Is the audio better now, by the way? Is that good? There have been some amazing milestones. One of the keys to the technology for me was, I used to describe it this way, that we want to become, in one sense, the thinnest skin between the artist and fan. The artist needs the ability to say, it's my home on this page. The fan needs the safety of a community, someone who's going to deal with customer service, who's going to deal with credit card inquiries, that kind of, the more prosaic side of things. But what's been phenomenal is that a lot of the innovation of what we built for the platform has been as the result of artists saying, why can't it do this? I wish it could do this. Can you push it to do this? And when we were a much smaller team, it was a huge workload for us, because a manager would say, my artist wants to release their album 10 songs at a time. It's a triple album, and we want fans to be able to vote on it. And it was like, okay, how do we do that? And then you have to kind of start, from scratch and figure those things out. But from the word go, we really wanted the artists to shine the brightest on the platform, and that we were just the underlying technology. What it ended up really becoming was the community element was really created by the fans. The fans wanted to interact and talk about it. I remember one campaign for a band called the Headstones out of Canada, and the Headstones, just their fans were in the best possible way, crazy. Some of the comment threads were thousands long. And when I went to see the band in Toronto on their opening day, they had T-shirts made which said "I pledged," and none of us at the company knew this. So I'm walking down the street towards the club, and there's thousands of people, bald-headed, very, very in shape metal guys with "I pledge" T-shirts going down, walking down the street, and so really we are, in one sense, we're a community, obviously, but the way that an artist like Will and his fans interact is very much between them. We just want to make it as frictionless as possible, and we also want to be a destination at which people who might like Will's music are going to come find him. And so it's a really varied mix. We've got campaigns going for everyone from Frankie Goes to Hollywood to Weezer, Devo to Madden Bros. It's really quite a varied mix. But what they all share in common is fans. They are people who, are obsessed by music and want to be a part of something larger than just the, as Jayce pointed out, $9.99 digital download. There's more to be had. So that's one of the things that's amazed me is that it's the way in which artists have forced us to innovate the platform. The way it looks was led by artists wanting to see a deeper experience. And when people show up and view our pages by the millions, it's a pretty surprising thing for us, because we didn't. I know, I can speak personally. I knew it was a big idea. I didn't know that we were going to be able to pull it off to the level that we have. So I still think someone's got to pinch me every now and then.
Well, that live music experience that Benji's talking about is where fans traditionally really went to celebrate, and they still go to celebrate their band. It's where they can go and wear a badge of honor and be in a community of like-minded people. And that's where they all share and gather. And that's a community. Every show is this community of fans who kind of love this artist. And what we've tried to do is, in this kind of cold and impersonal atmosphere that is social networking, that is email marketing, that is all these things, we've attempted to try and just draw all that community spirit into this one central point that is the artist's pledge page. And I think what's really key to it is that is that the commitment that each artist who launch a campaign has to bringing the fans in through a series of what we call pledger-only updates, and it's the commitment to pushing out the photos, the videos from the studio, the inside look, the places where fans want to be, which is inside the studio or backstage with the band. It's that telling of the story that builds and builds and builds upon the community. So each campaign in and of itself is, meant to tell a story, but do so in this warm and very, very personal way. And what Benji was talking about, kind of the innovation side of it, is to be able to get fans to select the order of the digital release of the triple album that's coming out as a single release, is a way to create a two-way communication. Because so much of social media is just serving a message and hoping fans click like or respond or whatever. But what we really strive to do is create the environment and the community and give the artist the tools in which the artist and the fan can have a two-way conversation. So it's not just loaded to, have you bought my album, buy my album, here I have something for you to purchase on a commerce level. It's, hey, here's Brophy tracking the drums on Will's albums. Here's a 30-second clip of that for all you drummers out there. Hey, look, it's me, Juliana Hatfield. Here is my pedal setup for the guitar tracking that I'm doing right now. Here's a 20-second clip of that. The series of those updates, the telling of the story, all become these beautiful marketing touch points for the artist that the fans then share out and celebrate and tell other people about and just grow that community.
If I could just add one thing to Jayce's comment there, this was really summed up for me once. I was being interviewed by a student, and he was asking about, why did you create Pledge? Why did you do this? And I said, his opening gambit to me was, he said, "You've ruined CD buying for me," and I was immensely proud of that. And I thought to myself, thank goodness, one down, 26 million to go. But he said, I watched an artist that I love make an album. I watched them share this process, and at the end of it, my name was in the album credits. And his exact words to me were, how do you go back? How do you go back to another way before that? And I think that, the world that we're heading towards is a streaming and access-based world. There's no question about that. But ultimately, there's always going to be a place for the artist to tell the story, and that is worth something to those who want to hear it. It really is, and it'll never take away from the music. If anything, it will give context to the music where it may have just been, Will, you're doing 180 gram vinyl. I asked you for a FLAC version of the, that's the type of fan I am. One of the funny things is most people are going to hear that through a streamed low bandwidth MP3. And that's fine if that's their choice and your choice to give it to them in that manner too. But when more is possible, you can give a context beyond it. Before the call started, we were talking about the way that the guitar solo kicks in on track 3 of the of Will's album. That's the type of music fans we are. We started this for people like-minded people, and so really what those fans want, what fans like us want, is going to be what is going to drive it. And it's an entire economy that is either being ignored completely or being given away for free largely on social media, which makes it a broadcast and not something that is specifically designed for the moment, for the experience. I think that the way in which an album release is going to become part of the art form of the record getting to people. And that's a really exciting canvas to have artists paint on.
I think, and to echo that, when we were mastering this record, I got the first master back, and it was screaming loud, and that changed a lot of the drum sounds and everything. But nowadays, because of that thin MP3 and the streaming and someone possibly listening on their laptop speakers, music is being finalized so loud with so much high end, so it can cut through and it can distort and it can get your attention if you're going from one track to the next on any of the streaming services or anything coming out of your laptop or earbuds made in China. And I said to the mastering engineer, I'm like, this isn't how I mix the record. It's got to be a little bit quieter so that you can hear the full tom, so you can hear all these things, and then I would rather have someone like want to lean into my music than have to like back away and think about coming back in. And I'll get to the commerce side of this in a second. And we're doing the 180 gram vinyl, and we're doing a special of that through Pledge now. And the 180 gram vinyl comes with a high class MP3, and it's and that's how we mastered it for the vinyl, because at the end of the day, like the 750 people who pledged, or the 750 pledges I had, those people, I can make a record for the rest of my life with those people. My goal now isn't selling 100,000 records. It's how do I get from 750 pledges to 1,200 pledges? And what can I do with my career and my music when I do that? And that's a far more attainable goal in today's marketplace. And I realized with the mastering of this record that I'd rather have 1,000 listeners, 2,000 listeners who want to lean in and listen to music the way Benji's describing it than a bunch of people who told me they checked it out on Spotify. That's nothing. I'm not bashing Spotify. I just feel like that's not a listening experience. And my cell phone is not a listening experience either, because I don't want someone putting on my album and all of a sudden getting interrupted by a text. I didn't work that hard for that, you know? And when I put out the vinyl in that quality, which the real music fan is excited about, like Benji was saying, they want to get the liner notes. They want to have the experience. I want the listeners. That's what I want for fans, and I'd rather have 500 listeners than 500,000 people passing by.
No, I think that's really great, and in line with what a lot of other people are talking to me about is cultivating a very tight-knit group of fans and working with those people as you move forward in your career. And it's not so much the old days of I need 1 million people to buy my records. It's how do I work with this core group that really likes what I do. So let me ask a question for any of you on musicians getting started. One school of thought is you need your own website. You want to be doing everything that you can to drive traffic to that website, and you can collect email addresses, trade tracks for that kind of thing, and that you point all your social channels to that website, versus a platform like Pledge, which is an alternate place to send people. How do you rationalize that, and what's your advice to people on the Pledge side, and maybe your own experience, Will, on your end? Is that some people are, they're afraid to kind of lose control of their audience in a sense, and I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are on that, and what you would advise an up-and-coming artist that's trying to build their web presence, trying to build their social channels. How do you get them to kind of come aboard, and what's that experience like for that artist as they sort of make that leap of faith?
You mean to go to a Pledge platform and start engaging their fans that way, so to speak? Yeah. Probably more so than ever, the material matters. In the past, the record label could take someone who vocally sounds like somebody, or just put them on a track that sounds like somebody, or their look, whatever. But now, more than ever, your material is going to matter more. And that, first and foremost, you're going to get a taste of right away, because some things, you can work really hard, but some things have to be automatic, and some things have to surprise you. And that's the one thing. I never hired a lawyer to sign myself to a major label. That happened to me. It's something that happened to me. Like I was attacked. But that's when I realized that, like, some things happen naturally. You still have to work hard every day. Every day I go to bed anymore. I'm tired. That feeling never goes away. But some things have to come to you, and I think from day one you should be noticing that. It should start with your friends. It should start with maybe some family members, and then it should start with some strangers. It should start with the show, and a stranger comes up to you and says exactly what you were going. I always love when someone comes up that I don't know, stumbled into a show, and says exactly what you'd want someone to hear. Not like good job, but your music, I feel like, accomplished this. When someone can say back to you what you're hoping to accomplish, it's a nice. There's nothing really better. And I think I had a team of people helping me with the campaign. One person in particular who oversaw it while I was recording and doing everything. And I was one of those people who was like, well, I don't want to annoy people on Facebook, or I don't want to annoy too many people on my mailing list. But then I thought about it. Well, she made me think about it. She said, so say you lose 5% of your mailing list. Say a bunch of people stop following you on Facebook and Twitter. They're not interested in you in the first place. So let's get the fat off the slab of meat and focus on the meat. And that's what we did. And I think when Jayce and I were looking at a campaign for me, we were thinking, yeah, you'll get like about 350 pledges or something like that, and we've got like 720. And because that's what we focus on, just telling the story and only worrying about the people who are going to give you the love and want you to be the artist they believe you can be. So that's what I'd say to anybody, whether they have 10 fans or 10,000 or 100,000, is worry about the ones who want to hear you every day, every year, every month, no matter what, and focus on them, and don't worry about being annoying, because it's so easy to turn somebody off nowadays. So the number of Facebook likes or email list size that you have doesn't matter, doesn't accomplish anything. It's who's responding. It's who's opening the email.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, if I could speak to that too, one of the interesting things that Will's pointing out here is in what and I think what your question was angling towards as well, Dave, was that a lot of the music business and artists in particular have made a great number of kings. They've made kings of retail, which meant that retail used to control how things were sold. They've made kings at iTunes. 800 million users with credit card details, and kings at Amazon, kings at Spotify, you know. And one of the founding philosophies behind Pledge was that you could direct traffic to us. So Will's 720 plus fans on Pledge are his. All the data belongs to him. And and basically I would resign if that weren't the case. I don't want to be a part of it, you know, because ultimately the future of this is those 720 fans will become more. They will, because Will's going to tell them a great story from now through this album, through the creation of the 180-gram vinyl, through the next project and the next project. And if Pledge becomes a king, it's a king owned by those who create the music. So Will's page is his page on our platform. I went down the MySpace route for years. 160-odd thousand people I had, and I couldn't communicate with any of them. I used to have a ton of Facebook friends. You can't communicate with them anymore, you know, without paying to play. And the intention behind this was to create the iTunes, the community of direct-to-fan, owned by those who create what makes it great. You know, all boats truly do rise. And the next parts of the technology that we're going into is how do we get people interested in more campaigns so that they can find and discover this new music. You know, we are really like, you know, that's a laser point focus for us, because the last thing I want is, you know, the website is the artist's home. Facebook is owned by its shareholders. It's not owned by the artists that put their music onto the platform, that have those conversations. And it wasn't designed that way. It wasn't. It's a social network. Instagram similarly. But to me, the most important thing is, in one sense, an artist has to think a bit like a tech company would. You know, I was saying to someone at a major label the other day, I said, iTunes just announced 800 million accounts linked to credit card details and email addresses. How many do you have? And one of the funny things is, Will knows exactly where his business lies and where to build from now, as do the other artists. And that's a beautiful power to have, because if you decide you don't want to be with us, you can go somewhere else. That's fine. But the key is only go where your data belongs to you. You use these other outlets for what they're brilliant at. You know, iTunes is an amazingly sticky store. Amazon's a phenomenal. They spend hundreds of millions to perfect the checkouts, on and on. But the cost is they take 30 to 50% of your income and own your customer data. And again, you just have to know that. So the funny thing is in Will's amazing analogy of taking your hardcore fans and then those that don't want to be there, they'll get you on iTunes if they wanted to. Jayce really wanted those. He went to there's nothing wrong with that. But the key is if you send the super fans there first, then all of a sudden you've lost them. Because if they have a bad experience at iTunes, if they only download it and then forget about it, if they put it in a Spotify playlist but don't get to it, where does that leave that possibility for connection? One of my favorite things is go onto a massive, massive artist website and try and give them $200, and it is impossible. It's not possible to do so, And it's not that you should just want to give money or that. It's not about that. But it's about the fact that I want 180-gram vinyl. I want the opportunity for a test pressing, an artwork proof. I want that. I'll show it to you right now. This is a signed, handwritten lyric sheet for Orgasm Addict, signed by Pete Shelley from the Buzzcocks. I wanted that. I was able to get it, plus a signed vinyl, on and on. So, it's not gimmicky because it's really what fans want, and you have to make it special, and it is, you can't it doesn't scale to signing 100,000 things, but the key is that we need to give the super fans a place to be that, and I think that's really what it comes down to is if you have a website, you can put a big banner on top of it that says pre-order the new album at PledgeMusic, and you can burn on, and you never lose the customers. They belong to you no matter what. Whereas if you send them to the other retailers, you lose them. And that's going to be the biggest single issue facing the music industry is it's given all of its data away again. And, you got to think like a tech company in some ways, which is that who owns that data, who owns that customer.
It is a bit of a sickness of the existing kind of businesses that, essentially with that data existing in these two big, huge places, and I guess we are singling out iTunes and Amazon here in one sense, because of their... I
love them dearly.
Yeah, I know. NSA's listening, I know. But yes, we do love them. But really, it's created the need to give them the exclusivity because their communities are so big, because it's on that. I think the way PledgeMusic works best is ahead of those outlets. If you serve a message to fans that says you can buy it here, here, and here all at the same time, you're sending confusing messaging. If you send them to iTunes and Amazon first, you're going to lose a certain amount of fans who are going to make that transaction there, not knowing that something better is coming, and you just risk the possibility that they're not going to want to make a second transaction. The beauty of where Pledge exists and the way that we designed it is that it really exists well before any traditional pre-sale cycle. It exists as the music is being created in its best form, or at least that's the way the story's told, well ahead of what the current industry or the existing industry has always placed as a pre-order period.
Yes.
Okay, so
we're done.
let me ask a question, a different question, and you guys can vie for who wants to answer it, and I'm sure Will, you might have your own take on this. There are a number of fan support platforms available these days. There seem to be more and more coming in not only the music genre but other genres, other entertainment and books and that kind of thing. And I noticed that you guys at Pledge, you take a very I don't know if it's a curated approach to who you work with, but it's different than what I see happening in other places. And I'd just be curious, kind of as your philosophy of, who do you want on the platform? What's the best time for an artist to approach you guys about doing a project? What are you looking for, and how would you kind of differentiate yourself from other choices that folks have out there in the marketplace?
I can say first and foremost that we want artists that are committed and believe in the same process that we've been describing here. And a lot of what we do, and a lot of reason that the site is curated, is that we spend a lot of time in the pre-launch phase getting to know the artist, understanding what their needs, what their wants, what their expectations are, and assessing whether or not the project that they want to launch is in alignment with the project that we feel has the best chance of success. The crowdfunding industry is a place where anybody can go and put up their idea, because that's what crowdfunding does. It says equal value across the platform. If you have an idea and it conforms to legality or whatever those standards are, we'll allow you to put it up there and go have fun. PledgeMusic says, we want to help you succeed in what it is that you want to do. And that based on the information that we can glean from you and open and honest kind of mutual conversation, that we'd like to help create this project with you and serve it to this community of incredible people at PledgeMusic, help you get it marketed out there the best way through your own channels and give it the best chance for success. So it is a curated approach in that sense that we are looking for artists who are like-minded and who understand our process.
Yeah, and if I could also speak to that, Jason, one of the things that Jayce's team is responsible for in the U.S. and one of the things that has differentiated us is that we know if a campaign is going to fail 90% of the time. We know if it's not going to work. We've got enough data. We're smart enough people. We care enough. And I think ultimately what tends to happen is you can launch anything on a crowdfunding platform. Some of them are even auto-launched. There's no human interaction at all, and that's okay. That's what that is. But what we do is an artist comes to us and says, we want to do 1,000 pre-orders. We've got X, Y, and Z for our socials on and on. Let's go. And if they launch that on any other platform, it would fail. Just because we know the numbers. We know what works and what doesn't. So when we look at an artist, we don't say, no, you can't launch quite often. What we'll do is we'll say, not now. You need to do X, Y, and Z to get there. You need to create a home. A lot of the artists we work with have got massive, incredible fan bases who simply don't know that they're doing anything. Because either the fan base has been destroyed through, abusive email lists or through, some sinister marketing tactics that have been perpetrated upon them in the past. But I've said, quite frankly, to a lot of people, you want to run a straight-out crowdfunding campaign. We're the wrong home for you there because it won't work as well. We know what works better. We know what's going to get you further, and we're not anti-crowdfunding. I'm not personally anti-crowdfunding at all. It's just a different tool set. And so what we do is we look at what the artist wants to achieve, and we say, okay, look, we think you can achieve this. If you're going to take 6 months, why just run a 30-day campaign? If it wants to be about vinyl, why not add? We built everything that was required to give it the maximum chance of success. We're never going to bat 100%. We're going to shoot for it, but we're never going to bat 100%. But the campaign managers that Jayce and his team, that Jayce oversees and his team, they will die trying. It's pretty remarkable to watch, because when something isn't going the way that we thought it would, we look at why. This hurt. It's painful. It's not like this is someone's fucking music. This is their baby. Like, I get it. We've all been that. And so to not do our best, to not give it every shot, to not look at ways of remessaging it, retargeting it, who's missing this, who's getting it, it would be crazy. And that's what we always wanted to be. We really did. I mean, it's not just saying it because one of our artists is on here and because we're talking. It literally is. We have Jayce and I will be on conversations. Why isn't this working? What the hell's and then we'll find the key. Oh, there's no Twitter account. Something isn't linked up, or it's just been like the mailing list is dead. So we have to find a way to revitalize it and reach different channels. So you have to be a bit restless about it. And it's not one size fits all, because music isn't one size fits all. Everyone's going to require something different, and it's our job to find what that is. And sometimes it's brainstorming sessions with the campaigns team. Sometimes it's at the A&R level. Sometimes it's interfacing with the marketing person at the label. But whatever it is, we got to find that hook and make it work. It's a creative process. It's not just a kind of one size fits all.
Sure.
Platform.
So that brings up another topic that maybe Will can chime in on. And this is another thing that I hear from people all the time is you know, this whole idea of do it yourself, that it's the age of the DIY artist, and I tell them no, it's really not possible to do it yourself, and it's more appropriate that it's do it with others model. And you know, in listening to Benji and Jayce talk about your approach to working with artists, it's very much a collaborative and team approach. And so, Will, if you wouldn't mind talking about kind of your thoughts on, you know, DIY and your team and how you approach things, you know, both with Pledge and in other ways.
Will, you're still muted.
Yeah, you got to unmute your mic.
That was that ding sound that kept happening. I was like,
Well,
why is it
you know,
dinging?
you need an engineer to help you. That's part of the deal.
Oh, so we just sent out, oddly enough, the email this morning when the album went up on iTunes to the email database that I have of fans and people, and the first sentence just said there's no such thing as DIY, because that's exactly what this record is, from everyone at Pledge who helped get it made, and to the fans, to everyone who worked on it, to my family and to my friends. I mean, I would not be able to do it without all these people, and to the team of people that I work with. My manager, we have an awesome radio team. I have a label partner named Billy Zero, who's on the West Coast, and I mean, we're told that I think for me it was Ian Mackay was my first experience from Fugazi of do it yourself, but he had a whole community of people helping him as well. And you do have to work very hard every day to be an artist, and it never leaves your mind. It doesn't leave your past, and it doesn't leave your projection of the future. But that's the fun part about being an artist. You definitely need people surrounding you and helping you. Like I said, if I ran my pledge campaign by myself, I would not have done as well as my campaign did. I had my friend and tour manager Gianna run it with me, and she's a big reason why it did so well, because we'd be in the studio and she would come up with ideas to talk about the campaign while we're recording. One night she said, I'm just going to take a picture of you guys working in the studio and say if we get 10 new pledges tonight while we're in here, that you're going to buy everyone beers. And I was like, what? I'm sitting there working. I go, whatever, sure. And she did it. She posted out. We had like 25 pledges in an hour. And then she went around and took pictures of all the guys in the band having a beer while they're recording. And it was just this genius thing I would have never thought about. I would have never sat there and done on my own. And she did. And I would not have had those 25 pledges without her. And then there's my, then in the musical scope, I mean, my album would not be good without Dave Brophy on drums and being my co-producer, Kimon Kirk on bass guitar, Kimon plays with Amy Mann and all these great people, and Dave plays with all these great people, and they played on my record, and they helped make it what it is. So from marketing to the music, and then also just a kind of, I have an amazing wife, and I would not have been able to get this record done if she didn't help keep me sane. So DIY is really a community thing, which is exactly what Pledge seeks to prove, is that it takes a lot of people to make this great stuff, and having more people in makes it better, makes it more successful, and makes it more exciting.
Okay, so let me probe a little deeper on that. Lots of folks have asked me, okay, I get it. I can't do it myself. I need to do it with others, but I have no money. And how do I motivate people to work with me? Like, how do I get a manager? How do I get a publisher? How do I get a booking agent to work with me when I'm just starting out? So, there's this dichotomy going on in that you need a team to really be successful. I think everyone would agree with that. Yet it's challenging when you're first starting out to actually assemble and collect a team. So, across the board, what has been your experience with that, and what have you guys seen on the Pledge side How do people motivate others to work with them?
Uh,
Good.
Benji, you
No,
want to go, Benji?
after you, Will.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that can happen to get it going for any artist. Um, and there's some red flags where you should also sit back and think about it, because I have a lot of friends, and I think they all have one thing in common. It's like my friends who have done well, somebody at some point flocks to them and helps them, and it kind of comes out of you doing good work. Which is, isn't that what you write on your emails, Benji? Loving your work? That's what you guys all, that's like, like somebody comes along and loves your work and turns on a switch, and it's happened, I can point to a dozen times where it's happened in my careers where someone's just said, I love your work, and I'm going to turn this switch right now, and I'm going to make it happen. Like I don't have an agent in the U.S. I have an agent in France, because there's one guy in France who said, I'm going to make this happen here. And I'm going and I play 600-seat theaters there now. And that's a new development in like the past year and a half. And I think when that happens, you have to realize it. And when it's not happening, step back and reassess. And that's an important thing no one tells us. And I've had to step back at times and reassess when no one's coming along and helping me push it forward. And at the same time, I to the fact that there was 3 bartenders in my band when I first started out. And that helped our first couple shows, because they're bartenders and they're talking to everyone about these shows that we're doing. And that was when I first started. I also attribute it to the fact that my first record in 2004, I was another white guy with a guitar, playing guitar, writing songs, and I thought, well, if anyone's going to pay attention to me, I got to do something different, because anyone could make a record with a computer. And I did a record on 16-track analog, and that means there's no computers used. There's no automation on the mix. We had to do the mix, and like if you wanted the vocal brought up on the chorus, you had to do it and bring it down. And if you messed it up, you start over again on the mix. And I ran out of money. I spent every dime I had. I lived in a closet at the time in Allston, Massachusetts, and I ran out of money paying for the record. And the studio owner said, "Well, I need a car, and if you want to sell me, you know." And I said, "Well, I got to sell this Civic that I had. It was red." And I sold the studio owner and the engineer on the record my red Honda Civic, which my friend called the Red Bullet. And so my first record was called Goodbye Red Bullet. Next thing I know, I'm getting all this press because artist sells his car to make record. You had a story. You had a story. Sometimes it doesn't matter how good your music is. The Beatles were great, but everyone talked about their haircuts. And you need a story, and no one tells an artist that. Every self-expression has value somewhere. Like music is a niche market, I think someone said earlier. But a story really helps get it across. Even with this record, National Throat, I started in 2013, getting a lawyer to fight to get out of my contract. Then I wrote a mission statement to my fans about the story and how I'm gonna make more music. I'm gonna get myself off the biggest label in the world and do it because I feel more excited doing it that way. And that's become the story. And I think it's important to tell artists that too, that I was talking with a young guy who's saying exactly what you were saying to me. What do I do? Do I need to get a publicist? Should I just get a publicist? And I tell some artists, do not go spend $10,000 on a publicist just to see your name in a paper. It's not worth it unless you have X, Y, and Z happening. And he's sitting there telling me, but I go, you need a story besides this great music that you did. I go, and don't be dismayed by that. What could be your story? He goes, I have nothing. It's just he's like, I just love my music, and I'm killing my shows, and I just need to get out there. And he goes, it's been so hard because for 3 years I've been battling Crohn's disease, and this is my first chance where I'm feeling better to make music. I go, wait, that's the story right there. You spent 3 years. That's you know, sometimes the story is as simple as what it took to make the record. It's right in front of you. And the story is what people relate to, so that then they put on the headphones and then they lean in. And then your music has the chance to do what it's doing. And if you look at anything, Lady Gaga's meat dress is her story. Beyonce just did the VMAs and used her daughter and her husband as the story because the music's not good enough. Not that her music's not good enough. It's not good enough on its own. We need the story to connect with each other, to then get into the music, to then be brought into the music. Now more than ever, with so much chatter, with so much music out there, And when I watched that Beyonce performance the other day, I was just like, that's brilliant execution of using the story. There's months of, is she getting divorced? Then her husband's on stage with her. Her daughter's talking into a microphone. She's using her whole family package to sell you her music. And when you're an artist and you see that, and you finally see that, it should help relax you. And it should help put your case together. Or decide if you really want to do that. Because that's part of what it takes.
That is such great advice. I can't thank you enough. There's so many people, everybody out there is watching this. Pay attention to that, right? I think that's very profound advice. So we're gonna run out of time shortly, but before we do, I got a question here from one of our viewers. What does music and consumer commerce look like 10, 20 years from now? I want you to pontificate, and not too long each. You each get about 2 minutes. What do you see the future looking like? We're sitting here today in 2014. Arguably, it's a great time to be a musician, yet at the other end of that spectrum, it's tough. It's a tough business. It's a dogfight, as Will said earlier before we started the call. It's tough. People are struggling. Yet, people are flocking to be in the music business more so than ever, and the dream is still there, and the drive is still there. What are we in for in the future? Let's just go around the table. What do you guys think? What's it going to look like?
Who wants to go first?
All right, I will. I might as well, right? What is it? It's still going to be massively commercially driven. The music industry is always going to be able to churn out the Beyoncés and the Jay-Z's and those things. They'll have their place, as they always will continue to have. And I mean, God bless. Maybe the Rolling Stones will still be touring in 10 years. I don't know what that's going to look like, but hey. But what I would like to think is that, regardless of the format in which music is going to come out, which is more and more looking like it's all going to go towards streaming and a subscription-based model. And I was just reading today, our friends at Ingrooves, who posted the article today about how you could triple the revenue based in the music industry simply by people paying in $120 a year, $10 a month for 12 months into a streaming service, as opposed to just the $45 on average that they spend. So if you want to look at it that way, it looks like it could be good for the music industry in one sense that it went that way, as long as the element remains that the music superfans have a choice, and the choice to buy the formats or the experiences or the overall experience of the making of the album with the artist. And to me, that's where it will continue to be held, is that the value, as Will said, is in the story, and the telling of the story of the making of the music is so valuable to the super fan who does not just want to buy a 99-cent track or a $9.99 album. So commercial music industry will still, I think it'll still proliferate. There will be more and more brands that will want to pump in more money to support more big, crazy tours. Go for it. That's great. But for artists who are looking to create, I think that their music will be streamed and consumed by a bunch of people who will flock more and more toward the streaming services. But the super fans will still be the ones who are assisting in the creation and taking part in the creation and becoming the catalyst for the creation of music.
I second that. I think it will be interesting in not so much 10 years, but 40 years, when Coldplay doesn't tour anymore, and the acts that were born when the old model was still really strong, and to see what it's like then. Just because those mass-selling giant, I mean, you already see it now with so many festivals, because you can't sell the tickets anymore, and people under 20-something or 30-something aren't reared on the going to concerts as much anymore. because their stars have been apps like Angry Birds, or they think they've experienced shows and live experiences because they saw it on YouTube. That's creating a whole different dynamic that will be 100% the norm in 40 years. In 10 years, you're going to see, like Jay said, you're going to see the branding and that continue to work. But I think the more that we get these kind of stories out there, and what happens when you pick 50 artists that you love, and you know who they are, and you follow them, and you think, I want to be a part of what they do, what that helps create, that subsidy, do-it-together model, that is PledgeMusic, from internal PledgeMusic to external PledgeMusic. And I think secondly, if we had in our education system, in our schools, I can only speak for here in America, that we taught music in a way that wasn't get an instrument in every kid's hand and teach them to be rock stars, but actually teach music listening and music appreciation, which never was really done in public schools because it ended with classical music, and then rock and roll took over, and then hip-hop. But if you could teach Beethoven listening next to the Beatles, next to Burt Bacharach, next to Tribe Called Quest, next to Mastodon, and you had all those things together, and you were talking about the value of each to young children throughout high school, you would have a different music culture going forward. And that's the one thing I advocate for when I talk about the future of music, more than commerce, because I'm after listeners, personally. So.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah, so yeah, one of the things that I think is going to be interesting is we're going to switch almost entirely to a consumption model at the higher level, which will be basically just streaming for a set fee per month. It'll be bundled into a service probably eventually, and that will be one industry. I think alongside that, the niches that are currently growing are going to become, in certain cases, the size of what the music industry already is today. I think basically in 10 to 20 years, the people who really want acid folk revivalism crossed with ska will be of sufficient numbers to where they represent an entire economy for artists, and it will be brilliant. It'll be amazing, because as deep down the rabbit hole as you choose to go, you can go. I think that there will be a ubiquitous kind of noise layer, which will be just, as Jayce said, well, that will be what that will look like. It'll be, but I think beneath that, you'll be able to go as weird and wonderful as you want. There'll be a home for it. I think in 10 years, Will's 720 pledgers are going to probably be in the 5,000 to 10,000 range before it goes into its other part, because he'll build the home for it, and we are going to continue to foster that. And I think that we just have to listen to what fans want. They'll tell us. They have a communication medium in which they can literally say what they want. No one asks. No one fucking asks. It drives me. It's crazy. Ask the question. It's a bit like you'll be like, do you think I should do this in red, yellow, black, or blue? I'm a little unsure myself. Guess what? I'm going to ask 1,000 people that actually really want it to arrive. And the funny thing is you can then battle with them if you want. But I do think that there will be a mass consumer level of music, and that's absolutely healthy. It will be a financially viable model. But I think that within that, there will be pieces which are entirely niche, entirely now considered small niches, which will then all of a sudden be exploitable into mass markets in and of themselves. And it'll be like, oh, you only got 1 billion streams? Well, we got 2 billion streams. That will be one level. But the other thing will be, we got 10,000 people to buy something before it existed that they can get for free later on. And that's going to be a completely logical thing to say, and it won't be a strange and odd thing. So I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be incredible, and I think that what we do will ultimately become normal, and then as it becomes normal, it will grow. Oh, and a small human's just joined us.
fascinating, fascinating conversation. I want to thank you all very much, Benji Rogers, Jayce Varden from PledgeMusic. Thank you very much for your time, and Will Dailey, good luck with the new release and your growing family.
Thank you.
You know, I think
I
it's
get a little
been,
witch
it's been a
princess.
very, yeah, it's been a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
If I could sum it up, you know, it's really this nichification of music is really very viable, as you all are proving in real time and in real life, that there is a viable opportunity to have a career with a small but dedicated fan base, and nurturing that fan base is incredibly important. And remembering the theme of this entire webinar, that all art exists because of subsidy, and that if you can bond with your fans and listen to them in such a way where you're all creating together, you can do something really wonderful. And you all are proving it. And thank you very, very much. Thanks everybody for your time. We'll go around the horn here.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thanks for having us. Cheers.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Great hanging out with you guys.
See you later.
All right, y'all be good, and thank you very much.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.